Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the publisher, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. It is Thursday, September 29th, and for the first time in what feels like months, we don't have a tournament this weekend, Josh. There's nothing happening. There's no tour event. I feel like the last time we had a weekend off was right before Worlds, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And even that one doesn't really feel like a weekend off because we're talking about Worlds.
And the tournament starts Tuesday.
Right. So it's not, I mean, in this case, we've got USDGC next week, but we have until Thursday.
That's right.
Thursday for it. So it feels like we have the whole week. That was not the case with Worlds. Worlds, we were doing preview shows on Thursday and Tuesday in order to get ready for it. So,
yeah, this year, first time in a long time, USDGC and Throw Pink will be Thursday to Sunday rather than Wednesday to Saturday. Love it. This is what we need to do. This is where everything should go.
They saw the empty spectator stands on the first half of Worlds and realized that this might be the better play.
The first half?
Okay, all but the last day. I was trying to be nice, Charlie.
I think we'll see big crowds. In fact, there's some course changes specifically because they're anticipating big crowds in Rock Hill, just south of Charlotte. And we will talk about some of the course changes later today as we go through. It's already a big topic on social media. People love to hate on this Winthrop Gold Winthrop Arena layout. So we'll discuss the changes this year, and we would encourage you to go check out our YouTube channel so you can take a look at the caddy book signs. And we also have some video from Jeremy Colling's Instagram, Big Germ, going through the course, kind of giving his thoughts on a practice round video. No Jomez out there this week. Remember, this is all in-house DGN content for the media at USDGC. So before we get to that, we've got some loose ends to take care of vis-a-vis the MVP Open. So first and foremost, Josh and I did it again. We prepped everything for Purse Watch, and then we didn't give it to you on Tuesday. So we'll give it to you today. Purse Watch for MVP Open. $103,690 for the purse. That is the largest Disc Golf Pro Tour purse besides the Ledgestone Open, which came in at $124,900. And that was $64,000 in added cash. $12,500 to the MPO winner. Of course, that's Simon Lizotte, and Natalie Ryan took home $9,000. Those are the biggest payouts of the year outside of Worlds. So big money on the line at the MVP Open, of course, part of the Disc Golf Pro Tour playoffs. And that's up 36% over last year. Came in at $76,000 last year, and again, $103,690 this year. Pretty impressive, Josh.
It really is. And I really think that the opportunity for events like the MVP Open and GMC as playoff events is that they can be marketed appropriately in order to try and bring in that extra revenue. And so even though we kind of poke fun a little bit of the idea of the playoff structure and feel like it does need to be reformed, there's the advantage to elevating these tournaments in the status of the disc golf tournament, in the Disc Golf Pro Tour, in order to help bring in some of that extra cash.
All right. Now, as we get kind of to the end of the season here, I actually want to look back at something in our Purse Watch, because we've been tracking the purses all season long. And, you know, we've seen an obvious trend, not only this year, but going back now probably since the pandemic, of purses at tournaments really going up. And the only tournaments this year that had a decline in their payout at all were on the Silver Series. Everything else went up at least a little bit. So going back to the beginning of the season, Belton down about 5%. Music City Open down 57%. Beaver State Fling down 1%. Mid-America Open down 7%. So, Josh, you know, in a year where we're seeing purses go up on the Elite Series events 20, 30, 40, 50% in some cases, what do you think it means that we're seeing declines on these Silver Series events?
Two things here. Number one, I think that it's a consequence of some of these events going from the national tour to a Silver Series event. Masters Cup, Beaver State Fling, and Music City Open all have held important spots on the national tour, and I think benefited accordingly when it comes to purses. I don't know if the PDGA puts money into national tour events, or if it just, in terms of sponsorship,
they definitely do. By the way, okay. I neglected to mention Masters Cup, but it was also down. It was down 30%.
Yes. So PDGA puts money in. They're probably sponsors who, being able to market the national tour as opposed to a Silver Series is a big difference. So that's what I make of half of them. I think more notably, you have like Belton and Mid-America Open both losing. And those are the two that I find more problematic, right? If these... And I don't know, maybe it's not problematic per se because it's 5 and 7% in the grand scheme of things. It's less than $2,000. So overall, not super significant in terms of the amount. What it says to me about those tournaments, though, is that they probably aren't going to be elevated to the Pro Tour anytime soon. Especially when you have a tournament like Des Moines that goes from relative obscurity 2 years ago to being the first 3-day tournament to have over $100,000 purse. It's possible, right? That there are fundraising opportunities and people who are able to take those kind of events and really elevate them and elevate their profile. Belton and Mid-America Open just haven't done that. And it's not that their tournaments are good, but maybe that's just a place where they belong is on the Silver Series. And so I'm not panicking yet. If Belton or Mid-America Open had a 30% drop, I would anticipate you would not see them on the tour next year, Silver Series or otherwise. But
yeah, I don't know. I find it a little unusual, like the Silver Series is obviously not getting the benefits of being on the Elite Series or the Pro Tour, which means more marketing, more money, more media, more top players. And that makes it easier to sell tickets, etc. Yeah. But I do think that it's like at least worth noticing that these events are trending in the wrong direction. And, you could say, well, that's why they're on the Silver Series, right? They're being relegated because of that. But I feel like maybe that causation is not quite right. Like, it's possible that, because like in theory, right, these Silver Series events should still be able to sell tickets pretty effectively, right?
Right.
Because like they're still going to have a bunch of top professional. I mean, Belton was more or less an Elite Series. Mm-hmm. But, of course, it was sandwiched in between Waco and Texas State's in the middle of this 3-week swing when everybody went to Waco and then, not that many people went to the other ones. So I just feel like it's a little odd. And it makes me wonder, like, what's the level of sustainability of a lot of these purse increases? I mean, maybe everything's great. Certainly the tournaments that are selling a lot of tickets are probably in a great position to be able to keep pushing the purses up. And, we'll talk a little bit more about that today, but I think it's a trend that I am going to be keeping a close eye on. And we're going to be continuing to do Purse Watch for forever so that we can keep an eye on this stuff. So just an interesting note, I thought. Also it's worth noting there's much less stringent requirements for what the purse has to be if you want to be a Silver Series event than if you want to be an Elite Series event.
Right.
You have to reach the minimums. And of course, once there's an actual benchmark that you have to reach, you're going to figure out ways to get there. The Des Moines Challenge, you make a great point, Josh, but I also think that is a very unique situation. I don't think that most, tournaments are going to be able to go to a company and be like, hey, give me $30,000 to put into the purse. They're going to laugh you out of the room. Not to say that it's not impossible, that it's impossible, but I do think it's challenging still.
Sure. No, okay. And that makes sense.
Let's take a look here. A couple other things to pick up from last time. We didn't talk about the $1 million shot. We saw players get a chance. They got 3 chances to throw for the women 450 feet, for the men 600 feet over the water on hole 1 at Maple Hill with a chance to ring it up for $1 million. So they bought the insurance, $10,000. We talked to Steve Dodge about this months back when they first announced that they were going to be doing this. And Josh, I don't know if you got a chance to watch the $1 million shot contests, but what did you think of the whole thing?
A couple of things. This is something that we had talked about as the mechanism for getting spectators on early days to come participate, because you can buy tickets and have access to these kind of special events. I really like it. I like it a lot. There's the big check sitting right in front of the tee pad and at the basket. You have players who were included by a fan vote that got to participate. And I think the holes were, they were difficult. They have to be. They have to be very difficult if you're going to do a $1 million ace challenge. But I felt like they were appropriately difficult. Like Albert Tom's shot was fairly close. And
Hannah also had one that was pretty darn good.
Yeah, like in the realm of possibility. This might be something that's hit once every 10 years, if that. But, that's exactly, those are the kind of odds you need. I really think it would be really good for this contest if in like 2 more years somebody actually hits it, and then it gets back to just like being missed a lot, because that gets kind of the, oh wow, it's possible, it's going to happen. Like it really engages people. I think you had a lot of skeptics who said, oh, this is just too hard, it's never going to be hit. I don't agree with that. I really do think it was an appropriate level of difficulty for $1 million ace, and I think it's the right kind of activity and event. Like, I think the concert series are good, and I think they work to achieve the same purpose. But I think that events like this are better because it's right. People who come to a disc golf, it's not like I see a concert and so I'm going to go to the disc golf tournament because there's the concert. I might go to the concert afterwards if I'm not a disc golf fan. Our goal should be to kind of create this environment where disc golf events are, and Pro Tour events are, you get to spectate the tournament, and there's the meet and greet opportunities, and there's a fan putting contest, and there's the $1 million ace challenge you get to watch. And it needs to be disc golf palooza every disc golf Pro Tour event, because thanks to the geography of it, where you're in a different place all the time, you could sell that out over and over and over and over.
Right.
It's not like it's, one festival that just has to happen and then be done. You can continue to do that thanks to the geographical differences of the tour, and you will get different people participating. Those are the kind of events I want to show up. I want disc golf from sunrise to after dark with glow putting and all sorts of games and opportunities for me as a fan, and watching the $1 million ace is part of that. And as you kind of create that schedule, you'll have single day tickets that sell out based primarily on the extracurriculars going on around.
I've watched plenty of big bomber distance contest type things, and USDGC coming up, they do a big thing where they have people shoot over the water and try to throw it into a bunch of baskets across the water. And like nobody ever hits it, but it's fun. It's like a big fun atmosphere. They got music and everybody's cheering for these huge double G shots and whatever.
Sure.
But this is better, right? The fact that there's $1 million on the line makes it cooler.
Yep.
And the fact that it's like a reachable basket for the players who are competing. And now, Steve Dodge mentioned to me that next year they're going to watch the forecast and they're going to hold the $1 million shot contest on the optimized weather days. Because of course, one of the challenges this year is that it was very windy. And so, people were flipping their discs out into oblivion. There are a lot, 75% of the shots probably had no chance. And you want more of the shots to have a chance. I think that's a fair thing to say. But overall, I found it just really fun to watch. The pace was nice and quick. It didn't drag on and on and on and on, right? The whole thing took 10, 15 minutes maybe. And again, you shouldn't expect them to make it, If it was too easy and it was too close, the insurance would be too expensive.
Yeah.
And it's for $1 million. It should probably be pretty hard. It should be a 1 in 1,000, 1 in 5,000 type shot. And, I think we saw enough get close enough that it was exciting. And I don't really see any reason that this can't be replicated year after year after year. The insurance company's going to be happy to sign up again next year.
Oh yeah, yeah. Until someone hits that ace.
Yeah, but like, they've done the math. They can look at the tape, and if they need to adjust our prices, they can. But I mean, that's insurance,
Yeah.
I think it's just a cool thing overall. Even if nobody ever hits it, it's like one of the best ways to do watch these pros throw really far at a target. Mm-hmm. And it's more fun to watch them throw at a target than it is to just watch them throw far on flat land. So Anyway, good stuff. Got a couple of emails to get to. Let's begin with this from Wayne. Do you guys realize the irony of you saying that it's silly for Ricky to emphasize the importance of winning the overall points championship instead of focusing on winning majors? Then you guys spending almost the entire show speculating about who should win the Player of the Year award. Josh, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's irony. I guess I don't fully realize it though, because in my opinion, I don't think that like talking about winning majors as being more important and also being interested in the Player of the Year conversation is mutually exclusive. Like I can believe that the Super Bowl is more important than the NFL MVP, but still want to discuss who's the front runner for the NFL MVP. This is especially true given, we were in between majors. We're now talking about USDGC. I don't think we're going to be talking about Player of the Year that much as we prep for USDGC. So, I mean, I guess, but the Player of the Year is an important award. It's an important award to sell to sponsors. It's an important award when people are considering the ways in which, like, they themselves are working towards their branding. Our critique of Ricky is not that he's excited about the Player of the Year award or that it's an important award to him. Our critique of Ricky is that he continues to double and triple down on this argument that Player of the Year trophy means more than the 6 world trophies that Macbeth has sitting in his cabinet shelf right now.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that winning the majors is probably the number one criteria for trying to win the Player of the Year award. Like, these things are related to one another. And it's not to say that Ricky doesn't deserve credit for winning the points race. He does. Mm-hmm. He absolutely does. It's a great achievement. It's hard to beat out all these guys. You got Gannon Burr never missing the top 10. You got, Macbeth wins worlds. You got to beat these guys out, and you did it. Kudos to you for that. But is it more important than the times you won worlds? Do you really believe that? I don't know that I believe that. I don't actually think that he actually believes that. That's what I'd say.
Here's my question for you. Are Ricky's signature discs going to start saying like 4 times Player of the Year award, or are they going to keep saying 2-time world champion, right? Like, even his signature discs have his world championships, not his Player of the Years listed. It's I don't believe it. Anyway, Charlie, I got an email for you. This comes from Roger. Roger says, topic to talk about Maple Hill, $300 VIP pass, or better yet, the $100 volunteer cost. For those of you who don't know, Steve Dodge implemented this, I think 2 or 3 years ago. Yep. It was kind of a controversial decision where volunteers had to pay in order to volunteer at the MVP Open. Steve Dodge came on and explained it on our show. He talked about how right now you'll have people who sign up to volunteer and won't show up. So instead, he kind of makes it an experience where you have dedicated times that you're in charge of working. You get commemorative discs, other gear, signing sessions with the pros, food, lots of other amenity, parking, like lots of other perks that come with being a volunteer. And he finds that his volunteer engagement and commitment rate is significantly higher. So anyway, that's Steve Dodge's little philosophy on that.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs.
Let's not give Steve Dodge that much credit. He's a visionary, but there's levels.
There's levels. Are you saying that Birdie Disc Golf, the board game, is not the next iPhone, Charlie?
Let's just let the sales metrics tell the math.
back to Roger's email. Are you growing the sport or ripping off fans? Outside investments grow the sport. Pro sports are free on TV. Football, baseball, basketball are all shown to grow the sport. Fair pricing to attend an event is the smart way to grow the sport. Outside advertising will make long-term growth happen, not screwing your small fan base.
A lot of exclamation points in this email too.
Yeah, and capital letters.
They sold out of the $300 VIP passes. They sold out all their volunteer spots. I mean, look, would it be great if disc golf was popular enough for ESPN to come in and say, hey, we'll pay you $2 billion for a 10-year contract to air all of your tournaments? Yeah, okay, so DGN is going to become an over-the-top service like NBA League Pass. Mm-hmm. And ESPN is going to show all the tournaments live, and they're going to bring in their crews and all their stuff. Yeah, that'd be sweet. That would be great. That's not happening right now. What is it that what is the problem? What is the problem? Like, the volunteer package is a good deal. Like, look it up. There's an article about it up on Ultiworld from a couple years ago when it was first announced. Now, I don't know the specifics of the 2022 deal, but it's like 4 discs, a bag, food, shirts, parking, blah, blah, blah. Like, the value of the stuff that you get is worth more than $100. Mm-hmm. You're sort of like buying a bunch of cool gear, and that, you know, you're sort of, that is the thing that you're paying for, and then you're a part of this tournament. But it's also a supply and demand issue. Maple Hill is a really tight course. If you want to walk with the card, they don't have that many spots, so they're charging a lot for that. If you just want to go hang out, it's not that much money. It's like $25. And look, I live in New York. I want to go to the Knicks game. It's $100 to get into the stadium at MSG a lot of the time. Like, it's just expensive when there's scarce space or like a lot of demand. I really don't think that disc golf is being priced out at this point. Now, I get the point here. It would be great to have money coming in from outside, but like you say, it's free on TV. Well, sort of. That's because you're the person being monetized. Like, these media companies are paying literally billions of dollars in order to be able to show it to you for free. Well, not even necessarily free in the case of ESPN. If you got ESPN in your cable package, you're paying $30 a month just for ESPN as a part of that package. Yep. You may not see that price quoted to you, but that's how much they're charging it as a part of that cable price that you pay. So, you know, let's say, okay, Fox, NBC, CBS football games, right? Those are free because they have millions and millions of people watching, and they're able to monetize via advertising. That is not possible right now in disc golf. It's just not. It's not. If DGN was all free on YouTube, they would make a tiny fraction of the amount of money that they make by having a paywall where you pay, if you're a PDGA member, it's like $5.50, $6 a month. I really don't want to hear it, to be perfectly honest. Like, it's not like this is some level of greed. Like, you don't have to buy the VIP pass. You can just get the regular pass. This is price discrimination at its finest, and it's working just fine. And this is a positive step for the sport. It creates more engagement. It makes it feel like more of an experience. It means that TDs can invest into their tournaments and make them more fun. It also means that eventually the people who are putting all of this infrastructure in place and creating all of this can get paid for it.
Mm-hmm. But the other thing I'll add, you know, Roger says at the end, the outside advertising will make long-term growth happen. Like, you're not telling anybody anything new there. Like, I think everybody knows that. If Epic Games came in and said, yeah, we're going to pay you $2 million this year if you'll just remove your paywall and put it on YouTube, I think Disc Golf Network would do it in a heartbeat. If you know outside advertising that's going to make long-term growth happen, I've got Sean Jack's number. Give him a call. Like, I'm sure he's open to it. You have a guy at the Disc Golf Pro Tour. You have tournament directors who spend countless hours trying to find outside advertising. They don't have these large sponsors and advertising, not because they don't want it. It's because disc golf doesn't have the viewers yet to get there. And so that's why they use the paywall. So yeah, I'm kind of with you, Charlie. Like, I think there's a lot of false equivalencies in here. And disc golf has been effective, and I think in its growth model. And when it isn't, when its price points are not correct, looking at you, Worlds, it fails. And it's very clearly an incorrect price point for whatever the package they're selling. And so we've seen different levels of effectiveness of which packages and tickets you're selling. And we're finding ways in order to find, more accessible maybe $5 tickets on Thursday, on, the first day of a 4-day tournament, or whatever it needs to be in order to get people in the door. That we're figuring that model out. But, like you said, Charlie, that $300 VIP pass is like saying that you can't get into the owner's box at the Knicks game and you're upset that you're not given the opportunity to watch.
Why aren't courtside seats only $50? Here's one from Ian. All right, last one. Josh, you've got such a chub for Ledgestone. You have your fun with that. No hate on that tournament, but please, there is no way Ledgestone has more prestige than Maple Hill. It just couldn't be true. Back me up on this, Charlie. Well, I will give my piece in a second, but Josh, your response.
Yeah. I'm going to make a point here, and you can come back. Ian can come back and say that you know what I meant, and that's not an accurate portrayal. But I'm going to point something out that I think is really important. Note that he says there's no way Ledgestone has more prestige than Maple Hill. Maple Hill's not the name of the tournament. It's the MVP Open. Nobody calls it the MVP Open because, yes, the course has more prestige.
But you know what he means.
No, I am making, this is an important point. Let me finish this, all right? This tournament has been rebranded several times over the past couple of years. It went from, I don't remember what it was at first, and then it went to the Vibram Open. What was it before the Vibram Open?
I don't remember.
Okay, so it was something, then it became the Vibram Open, and then it became the MVP Open, and now it seems like it's probably going to stay pretty consistently the MVP Open.
For at least 10 years.
For at least 10 years. The tournament has changed title sponsors, it's changed names, it's changed number of days. The tournament itself gains all of its prestige from the course. And it is an excellent course. But a course alone does not make all the prestige of a tournament. You have in addition, the kind of branding around it, the money as being a notable point, which Ledgestone has always done an amazing job of. Ledgestone has played host to Worlds in the past at Peoria in 2019, where Charlie roamed the fields of Peoria. And while Ledgestone's course it's not Maple Hill, Lake Eureka has, with as ugly of a property as it is, has signature holes that are exciting. You have the water tower hole. You have the skip shot across the water on 16 or 17. That might undervalue my argument a little bit, but one of those two holes has a water skip shot. You have Northwood's gold, now black. That's just a historically
difficult. If you say Northwood's, people are going to lose their minds.
Northwood. Oh no, I did it again.
No, you're dead. It's over. People just turned off the show.
Good.
They unfollowed.
If the commentators get to say Northwoods the entire weekend, I can have one slip up. Northwood is considered the hardest course in disc golf and receives the value for that. There's a lot of things that go into making Ledgestone such a prestigious tournament. And Maple Hill is the single best course in our sport. But there are so many things more than just a single course that lead to a prestige of a tournament that I think Ledgestone has it beat at the MVP Open.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sticking to my guns on this one.
Ridiculous. The only reason people go to Ledgestone is because it had big fat payouts way down the table. Now, I'll give them credit. Northwood Black has been a good addition, and they've taken off some of the annoying parts of it, and they've made a really good course that I think pros really like to play. And hell, we can't watch half of it, Josh.
Yes, I can. It's just post.
There is no way in the world that Ledgestone is more prestigious than the MVP Open, or if you want to call it Maple Hill, you could call it Maple Hill. And you say that Ledgestone has all of these other things going on that make it more prestigious. Well, the MVP Open, like it's like a celebratory environment. Like, not only do you have this $1 million shot, which, call it a gimmick if you want, but you have the pros are playing ping pong. They got all these games. There's all these crazy and there's a legacy with this tournament. This goes way back. This has been one of the most important tournaments on tour for years. It's the final postseason stop before the tour championship. Why do you think that is? You say the course is better. Well, yeah, isn't that the point? Like, we play a sport on courses, and having the course be amazing is the key thing. Ledgestone has a good course and a blah course that nobody would miss if it got snipped from the tour. I mean, even Nate Heinel wants to change it up. It's a relic at this point. It's a rope fest. I mean, we all know the problems with that course. And look, I'm not knocking Ledgestone. I respect the fact that they put more money into their tournament than any other tournament. It's the number one Pro Tour payout of the season. That deserves respect. But to say that it has the same weight as winning the MVP Open at Maple Hill is just false. It's simply false.
Okay, here's two questions then. No, well, number one's a kind of a point back. You also have literally thousands of people that come out to play Ledgestone. Like the AM weekend and all the divisions they offer across like 20 courses. So I get MVPs like the celebratory, but like literally the entire country treks to Ledgestone in the middle of the summer to go play this event. Thousands of people. It is I think probably the single largest tournament.
I believe it now is the largest tournament in the country.
Without a doubt, the largest tournament in the country now. It's enormous. It's such a big deal. And it's that opportunity with, you have AMs and pros and everybody playing this huge, enormous tournament that has amazing payouts and the hardest course in disc golf. I love Northwood Black. But anyway, the other question I guess I'd ask, when you look at the 4-player win totals this year and you see Ricky and Simon, do you think Simon's win is more impressive than Ricky's Ledgestone win?
I hadn't given it any thought until you asked me at this moment. The tournament got shortened to 3 rounds this year, but in some ways, I think Simon's was more impressive because he had to grind it out after being way down at the beginning of his tournament and shoot 2 amazing rounds in order to win. Now, other people kind of open the door for him, to start 6 shots back and still win means that other people made mistakes, and that's certainly true. But it's a great W.
And that's fair, and I think that's going to highlight the difference, because whenever I see, like when I see the winner of Ledgestone, I think that is like, it's not quite major status, but when I'm looking at Player of the Year race, I always put Ledgestone as my top elite series in terms of importance, because it has the 2 courses, the money on the line, right? It brings people out and brings out that competitive nature of people. And so when I'm evaluating wins, I always am putting Ledgestone above any other win.
And I do think that there's some validity to talking about that, because it does test skills in a way that maybe some other courses do not. But Maple Hill has it all. It has giant power shots. It has tight woods. It has technical shot making. Mm-hmm. It has right to left and left to right shots. It's not over 2 courses, obviously, but I still think that it and how many holes on Maple Hill are amazing and memorable and unique.
A lot
versus of them. Eureka. Sorry. even Northwood, I don't even know how half those holes look like. Can't watch them. All right. I've made my point. You've made your point.
Yep.
Let's move on. We'll let people email us and tell us what they think. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're breaking down all the changes at Winthrop, because it's that time of year. It's USDGC time. There's going to be some wacky Mandos. There's going to be some crazy changes. We break it all down next. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Did you know that Pound makes more than disc golf backpacks? That's right. They've got beverage carriers. I've got one. They're awesome. They've got travel bags like the Fly Pack. You can even get a toolbox to have a practice bag in the trunk of your car, a fanny pack, packing cubes, and a whole lot more. Go to pounddiscgolf.com and trick yourself out with Pound bags for every aspect of your bag needs. Welcome back to the Upshot. So we've got the USDGC and the A-Tier Throw Pink Women's Disc Golf Championship coming up in 1 week. Starts 1 week from today. Of course, we'll give you our full preview show next week, but we wanted to go through some of the course changes because the caddy books are out, and we've had a chance now to take a look at what's going to be different this year. Now, just to run through this, now, if you're relatively new to the sport, this is one of the most unique courses on tour. Winthrop Gold. It is going to have. It's built on a property at Winthrop University that is essentially mostly just open kind of parkland, I might call it. It's at their rec sports kind of facility, and it's built in and around. There's a big lake. It's beautiful. But there's a lot of sort of weird usage of weird space. So they go around baseball fields and alongside parking lots. And, it is sort of maximizing the land that is available at Winthrop. And what that means is that there's a lot of sort of, rope, number one. We see a lot of out of bounds in order to shape fairways and create difficulty on what is otherwise open grass parkland. And there's also quite a bit of sort of use of mandatories, artificial obstacles, and sort of like a mini golfish like feel at times on some holes that for some people, they find the challenges created here unique and interesting. And for other people, they feel like it's really gimmicky. The mozzarella sticks, of course, we've talked about for years. I think we're still going to have those on a couple holes. And, the triple mandos and all kinds of wacky stuff. And they're always doing new things. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. 2 years ago, they made a bunch of changes and people hated them. And then they kind of reverted back to sort of what I would call the standard layout last year. But there's actually quite a few changes coming this year, Josh. So first and foremost, what's your general sentiment towards Winthrop before we talk about these changes?
Yeah, I don't hate the gimmicks quite as much as everybody else. I think we're going to eventually outgrow this course. In terms of the skill of professionals and the things that you would have to do to it in order to make it work, I think we're actually quickly approaching that level. I worry but I don't know. Some of these changes are kind of making me, last year especially, I felt this way, and I've talked a lot about it. And you and I have talked about buying a new property that becomes the home of USDGC. But some of these changes really, I think, add some variety and challenge, and I'm excited to talk about them. Overall, though, Winthrop, most of the holes are just terrible to look at. They're so ugly, but I really enjoy watching the way the golf unfolds on a lot of these holes.
Yeah.
The reason, right. And I think the biggest reason why is because it puts pressure on the perfect areas and understands the mistakes that players are going to make. One hole that doesn't have too many changes that I want to highlight, hole 10, you're throwing over OB the entire way into a small little keyhole kind of island where, looks like there's some bailout zones to the left if you want to play real safe hyzer, but it's a difficult shot. In wind conditions, overturning the drive is a real consideration. and calm, though. If you're too nervous or worried about the OB, your gut instinct is going to be to try and play it too safe. And that's what the mistake's going to be. I mean, this course very fundamentally understands the mistakes that players make when put under certain types of pressure. And it sets up for an incredible golf tournament. And that's one of the big things that, as gimmicky as it is, as weird as it is at times, it does a really good job of pushing the right buttons of players to create the kind of pressure situations that are artificially created, right? It's not just we hope the tournament is close, but if someone's up by 20 strokes, then it's done. Think about Calvin Heimberg's run in the rain against Chris Dickerson and the mistakes that Chris was making while being charged from 2 cards back, I think it was.
Yeah, he was 10 strokes back, and he almost won the tournament.
Almost won the tournament. This course understands golf, and I really, really appreciate that about it.
Incredible risk-reward decisions all over this course. 10's a perfect example. It's a par 4. If you have power, you can run the green. And there are plenty of eagles, but you also can get punished, go OB, have to go to the drop zone. And at that point, you're looking at hoping to save par, but you can see big numbers. You also have the option to play it safe for birdie. So it's really nice because you have those kinds of risk-reward decisions a lot, and there's all kinds of skills challenged. You got to be able to throw dead straight. You got to be able to throw low shots, low ceiling shots with big skips around corners. You have to hit gaps, for it's funny because as few trees are as involved in this course, the gap hitting is all over the place. And that's actually increasing this year a little bit. So we'll talk about that right now. Let's go through some of the changes. And some of them have been very controversial. And we will begin with hole number 2. Hole 1 will be in its sort of classic position where it's kind of straight at it. Now, hole 1, remember, has got the rock with the basket up on top of the rock. Rather than the forehand shot that it was used for a long time, it's the double Mando shot, more straight at it. It's only 280 feet, but it's a nervy shot to throw. Remember, very notably last year, right? Yes, last year, Paige Pierce missing that double Mando. She had the lead, and then she had that insane meltdown round and completely fell out of contention with just one of the worst rounds that she's thrown in years. And Missy Gannon went on to win at Throw Pink.
I don't think the basket's on the rock anymore. I think it used to be when it was the forehand shot. But
did they take it off the rock now? Yeah, you might be right about that.
It was on the rock when it was tucked further back behind the bush and set up for that forehand line. Now it's just a straight and it's level because remember Macbeth's playoff putt was not on the rock.
When we seen the skip ace, you're right. You're totally right.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. But now you have the log that comes into play.
Yep.
Because you can't just slide it up because that log is there and people smoke that log all the time. So.
And remember, this is where Macbeth won on the playoff against Kyle Klein.
Yes.
Kyle got caught up on the tree's left side, and Macbeth had the edge of the circle putt, and we all know the big roar, and he won his 3rd USDGC.
I actually don't remember it, Charlie. If I remember right, the coverage cut out right at the start of the playoff.
That's right. That was crazy.
Oh, that was bad. Anyway.
Oh, man. So we really begin the discussion here on hole 2. We're not going to go through every single hole in the course. Hole 2. And again, go over to our YouTube channel, Ulti World Disc Golf, like and subscribe. And you can check these out if you don't want to go hunt down the caddy book. We'll do our best to describe it. So hole 2, the tee has moved up and left. This used to be a par 4. Now it's a par 3. It's 409 feet for MPO. There's a Mando at the corner where the parking lot is. The basket's in its original position, but it's a very low ceiling shot through a gap. And got a picture here as well from Big Germ's Instagram. So you can see what a challenging shot this is because it's far and it's a par 3. And it's going to be tough because you have to make that Mando on your left side. And so if you throw something too stable, it's going to skip and go OB. So you have to be able to come in with the right speed and angle of disc selection. I think it's going to be a really tough birdie. I guess we'll see how it shakes out, Josh. But to have to throw that low with the Mando where it is and from 400 feet back, I just don't see how we're going to see that many birdies here. It's just too risky given that you can skip into the OB.
Well, it also looks like the OB line is off the fence this year based on the caddy book. You can see the black line over to the right of the OB
make a
line.
Good point, Josh.
I think that OB line might be a couple feet off of the fence line, making it even more punishing. Because I was going to say, oh, well, what you do is you just swing it wide, and if you hit the fence, blast it into the fence, and what happens. And if you get it just right, you get the birdie. If not, your mistake is to just hit the fence. I don't think that's going to be an option, though. I mean, you might still get the kick, but that's not a safe play by any means. And I think in previous years, you've been able to use the parking a lot, because you would see skip forehands for the second shot on this par 4 using the parking a lot.
Mando takes that out of play. So, you have just combination of some really difficult elements brought into this. I agree with you, Charlie. I think this is going to be a really, really difficult hole. We move to hole 3. Hole 3 is a kind of a combination of last year's hole 3 and hole 4. So hole 3, remember, is the big downhill shot over the road. There was the hazard on the left side. Pretty comfortable birdie for a lot of players. Nice if you had a good forehand. And then hole 4 was the one where you'd shoot up the hill and then through the gap on the right side, and you'd have to get into the green, which is sort of protected by a ring of trees. So now it's a par 4 for the men, par 5 for the women. The basket position is where it was on 4. The tee position is where it was on 3. So you throw down the hill. There's a hazard circle kind of in the middle of the landing zone, and then you got to get through the gap and
with a Mando
go right to left, left to right. So you want to probably throw forehand, or if you have a very good turnover backhand, you could throw that into the green. Par 4 for the men, par 5 for the women, 840 feet for the men. It'll be the same for both. So that is tough, because yes, it's a downhill shot, but you have to crush the disc down there to be in a good position to attack the green. I think you're going to see this hole reward distance throwers a lot, and players without enough distance are simply not going to get a birdie here. It's just not going to be possible. You'll see more birdies in FPO because of the par 5.
Yes, I think it's going to be really interesting to see which players go for it. Because remember how bad this hole gets if you get pinched off down in that little ravine where that Mando is and the gap that you have to hit in order to approach the green. If you are too far, we've seen players just pitch out 10 feet in order to then line up with the gap for their next shot.
Yep.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how close players want to get themselves, especially with that hazard area on the left that puts it in danger of a safer layup that gives a wider angle. I mean, the point of that is that you can't have the wide angle going into the green to throw a gentle turnover or a pretty straight forehand. And it's brutal. It's going to be very punishing. I'm really excited to see this hole played out, though.
Next up, we have hole 4. This is the hole 4 that they debuted 2 years ago and then eliminated, and now they're bringing it back. So this is the tunnel shot, right? This is the Winthrop tunnel shot. They found a row of trees kind of over in the golf course area, and they put the tee at the back of it, and you throw at the basket, and it's only 300 feet. Now, this was originally, when they built it 2 years ago, it had 2 double Mandos, and that was highly unpopular. They have now just reduced it down to a single Mando on the left side, so you can't swing it out like wide to the left anymore, like with a big forehand or a turnover backhand. You kind of have to go up the gut. I guess you could try to figure out a way to throw a hyzer backhand, but that would be really tough given where the tee pad is positioned. They have moved the tee up a little bit. There will be more birdies here, but it's still just you got to be able to point and shoot 300 feet up a very tight gap.
I think you're going to see some shots get lucky, right? The what's the expression? It's better to miss by a foot than an inch or whatever, because if you miss some of those trees right, you could conceivably filter your way down now that there's not the double Mando. Overall, though, I mean, I think it's a fine addition. I'm fine with it because I like hole 3 enough that they needed another hole, so bring it back.
Yeah, I'm going to be really curious to see how hole 3 plays. I mean, I really like the combination of shots required, right? It's like that big downhill shot is awesome, and then that approach shot to the green on old hole 4 is also awesome. The question is, did they calibrate the challenge of this hole correctly? And or are we going to see everybody take par? We'll see. Hole 5 is the big par 5 along the lake. Nothing has changed. Hole 6 is
Great
the same
hole.
onto the sand. Hole 7 is the triple Mando gate hole, fence hole. Nothing has changed. Hole 8 is basically the same. That's the one along the fence line where you have the big power forehand shot, usually the best one.
Or the roller. I think
Or the roller. We see the
here.
roller there. Yes.
Because the baseball field's up on the right.
I think hole 9 is about the same as it was last year. I'm going to double check that.
Yeah, this is the one that has the mozzarella sticks off the tee. And they were like, oh, this hole's a little too easy. So they just stuck mozzarella sticks 15 feet off of the tee.
No, this hole's OB is different now. So
Is it different?
They change the OB on this hole every single year, so it's hard to remember what's what. It's 360-foot, par 3 for the men, par 4 for the women. This is the one alongside the giant, baseball fence. Like maybe there's some sort of video board or something on it.
I think so. That seems right.
And yeah, there are mozzarella sticks off the tee still here. They're marked on the caddy book. Last year it was like a skinny fairway to an island green, and now you can throw out to the right if you want to play it safe. There's a long fairway along the right side, but if you want to go straight at it, you're throwing basically over OB the whole way. And then there's OB behind the basket as well. The drop zone is close enough that you can putt. So I think we'll see a lot of people go for it. Interesting hole. It'll play a lot easier for the women because it's a par 4. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw some eagles from the women.
Yeah. Well, and the women, I think, have a better, depending on the wind and the weather, might have a legitimate reason to lay up. I don't think there will be a single MPO player that lays this up. Unless you're playing with a 10-stroke lead.
Yeah. Hole 10 is basically the same. We talked about that earlier. Okay, so then we get to our next notable change. Hole 11. Pretty much the same pin position and basket position, but they have changed the hazard. And look at this. It looks like one of those dragon's teeth holes on a mini golf course where you got all the impediments. You got to shoot right straight through it. Otherwise, you get knocked off. And they've also put a big hazard area right in the landing zone where most players were trying to throw on this hole previously. So now you're going to be forced to decide, are you going to try to throw over this hazard or are you going to come up short? And as we take a look at this video right now from Germ's Instagram, this is the other big change this year. Look at this out of bounds. We see rocks marking the OB and unmowed grass giving more visual clarity to the areas that are either hazard or out of bounds. I have to give them huge credit for this. I think this is the kind of thing that we've been waiting to see, not only from USDGC, but from all tournaments. Give us visual clarity of where the out of bounds is. This is better than rope. This is better than paint. We can see. Now, the rocks introduce their own set of challenges. Rollers used to be pretty common on this hole because you could roll right under the rope, which was kind of lifted up off of the ground by about a foot, enough for discs to roll underneath. Now, if you're going to throw a roller, you obviously could hit a rock and find yourself in the hazard taking a stroke.
This hole used to just reward a pretty big forehand, but I think that's exactly what this drop zone's designed to punish. If I remember right, Anthony Barella usually throws crazy backhand turnovers that get him well past the drop zone. I expect that to be a pretty popular play, where in the philosophy of James Conrad, if you're going to go out of bounds, you better make sure it's next to the basket.
What do you think of all the hazard on this hole, Josh? This has been one of the most controversial T signs, I guess I'll say, that people have noticed coming into USDGC.
When I first saw the T sign, I was not a fan of it because it felt very random. But number one, it's very clear, the more I think, and I went back and watched this whole played, I don't think this hazard is random at all. And because there's the visual clarity, I don't have a problem with it. If you can see the OB, my problem with these kind of OBs is that when you can't really tell where they are, it's just throwing and hoping that you're safe, right? Now that you can see where the OB is, you can see where the hazard is, you can see the obstacles in your way, this is a exercise in, can you pick a point on the fairway and hit it? And I don't have a problem with that. It goes back to what I talked about at the beginning about the challenging and the way that it understands golf. And I think so often players can say, I mean, I do this too. What you ask the question, what is the miss, right? What's the best miss on this hole? Okay, it's to the right. So I'm just going to blast a forehand. That's my ideal landing zone. But if I go right, then who cares? This hole says, nah, you have to pick your spot, and there is no good miss. If you miss your spot, you're in hazard. So pick a spot and hit it. Maybe it's a little gimmicky. Welcome to Winthrop. I kind of like it.
Hole 12, basically the same. This is the one where you throw from up high over the hay bales, but they added OB in the landing zone. That's a theme for this year, OB to the landing zone. So it's going to be more challenging. You're going to be pushed to either throw further or lay up shorter. Yep. So increasing risk reward. Okay, so then we get to maybe the biggest change on the course, and that's hole 13. Now, this was originally 888, or it was 999. It's had different numbers over the years.
Nico's Albatross.
This was the Albatross hole. This was the island over on the little patch of grass over the parking lot. So the shot was you go over the parking lot, and then you try to land it on the island, and you could eagle, and you could Albatross if you throw it in. Now they have removed that island component from the hole, and you play along the left side the whole time. Now, the reason for this is that they are expecting more people, more spectators, more cars, more everything, and they're going to want to use all of this space for that. So now it plays only along the left side. They've moved the tee, and so take a look at this blind tee shot. Here's a look at the tee shot. So if you're just listening to the podcast, there's like a little, it's a really tight kind of claustrophobic tee pad with trees kind of like right there, and there's a hill that makes the tee shot completely blind. It's an 818-foot par 4. You throw this blind tee shot, probably like an anti-flex backhand shot, and then you're going to have a long approach shot into the pin, and the pin is surrounded by trees within 2 feet of the basket. Here's a picture of that. I mean, it's like if you're on the wrong side of this basket, you will not have a way to put it into the basket. Like it again, it feels a little bit putt-puttish here that you have to get onto the right side to be able to make a putt. So I'm curious, like, is anybody going to birdie this hole? I mean, it's going to be really tough because it's so far. And then, of course, you have all of the OB danger. You know, there's not really danger left, but there's bad trees you don't want to get caught up in. And then there is OB right past the cart path.
Well, just remember the difficulty, because in past years, it was a question of, did you get up to the gap and then you could go over the parking lot? Or if you didn't, you then had to make that corner that's now a Mando. That corner, like that approach through the corner is a hard shot in and of itself. And I don't think the green is accessible if you're not at the mouth of the corner. I don't think birdie's in play here. I think you're going to have a layup drive, get through the corner, approach, putt. I think that's how almost everybody is going to play this hole. I would be shocked if we see more than a handful. I will probably make this an over-under when we get to our preview.
All right.
I need to look at it a little more, but I'm not expecting many birdies on this hole.
Yeah, very, very interesting. We'll see how it plays. I mean, it's totally different. We move on. 14, nothing's changed. 15, nothing has changed. 16, nothing has changed. It's got the mozzarella sticks along the green. 17, classic 17 island. Yeah. We know what that's all about. And okay, so then the other notable change, 18 is pretty much the same. You're throwing off the dock onto the sloped fairway. Really tricky, kind of touchy shot. You can't have it roll down to the left, down the hill, because you'll go OB. Now, the basket's in its ideal spot down that hard sloped hill, it kind of in the shadows, but they've added a Mando up at the top of the fairway. So you cannot swing it out wide right with like a backhand hyzer to kind of try to splash it down and slide it up to the basket. You have to stay kind of in that fairway gap. Now, I don't know why exactly they made this change. I could imagine it's for safety reasons. They don't want people throwing out over spectators. But I do think that's going to add a little bit of additional difficulty to an already tough and really fantastic hole 18.
You know, Charlie, we were talking about why that was there, and I was talking about how I think that has been played as a safe route for a second shot for those just playing for par. But I also think there are drives, and maybe it's just upshots, that we have seen go start OB and kind of slide inbounds. And usually it creates a lot of drama about whether or not that disc is going to get back in. I think that might be more what it's designed to prevent than anything, is even the risk of going and swinging out over the crowd, given, you know, what you talked about with those people.
Worth noting that this Mando has been in place before, but it wasn't there last year. So, like, we've seen this Mando here and there, but I think they also cut down the tree that marked this Mando previously. It's hard to keep track of all of the changes over time, but, you know, things come and they go and they return, and that's USDGC for you.
Yep.
So, on the whole, I think mostly these changes make the course a little harder, Josh. And I'm actually super excited to see the new hole 3.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the changes towards the back, in the middle of the back of the course, I'm a little more skeptical about. We'll see how 13 plays.
Welcome to Winthrop. It's fall time again. You have pumpkin spice sweaters and gimmicks at Winthrop that people are going to complain about. So get your Instagram, get your social medias ready. I'm sure you're going to hear a lot of complaining, but coverage is free this year. It is included with the Disc Golf Network subscriber package, which means you're not going to have to hear the complaints about an extra pay-per-view package that comes along with USDGC.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of a nightmare for them last year, wasn't it? Like, they make you pay extra, and then, like, kind of spotty quality, and, like, then they had the dropout for the final, for the playoff. I mean, brutal.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Well, it's all going down in Rock Hill 1 week from today. We'll break it down more next week as we do our preview show and start to think about who might win this tournament. Get your questions in, get your thoughts in on the course, on what the USDGC is all about. You know, do you want to see it move to a new location? Do you love where it is? There's so much history at USDGC, and it's the second most important major. We'll also have to talk, Josh, about whether we think the U.S. Women's Championship major should be established at Winthrop. So we'll discuss that next week right here on The Upshot.